The heavy mahogany doors of Aurelian Co didn't just close. They sealed with a pressurized thud, locking out the common noise of the city and replacing it with the suffocating silence of extreme wealth. The air inside was chilled, smelling of expensive cedarwood and the sharp, metallic tang of ancient gold. Elena stepped onto the polished marble floors, her sneakers making a faint rhythmic squeak that sounded like a siren in a cathedral. She wore a heavy black hoodie, the hood pulled low, shadowing a face that had seen more boardrooms than any person in this building. She hadn't even reached the first display case before the rot made itself known. "You're in the wrong zip code, and quite frankly, you're the most expensive mistake this floor has seen all year. The thrift shop is 3 blocks over. Move along before you scuff the marble with those things on your feet." Mr. Sterling, the floor manager, emerged from behind a velvet-lined pillar like a predator defending its territory. He stood beneath the massive tiered crystal chandelier, the light catching the gold leaf molding of the ceiling and reflecting off his formal black vest and white shirt. His silk tie was knotted with a precision that bordered on a threat. He didn't just look at Elena. He dissected her, his eyes filled with a visceral, physical disgust. Elena didn't stop. She didn't flinch. She kept her hands in the front pocket of the hoodie. "I was told this was a public establishment, Mr. Sterling. I'm interested in the heritage collection. I've heard the craftsmanship has begun to deteriorate under current management." The social jury of the store, a group of elite shoppers in pearls and charcoal wool coats, stopped their conversations. They drifted closer, their faces twisted into judgmental smirks. They weren't there to shop anymore, they were there to watch a cleansing. Sterling let out a sharp, mocking bark of a laugh that echoed off the mahogany walls. "Heritage? You wouldn't know heritage if it hit you in the face, which, believe me, is becoming a tempting prospect. This brand is for legacies, for families who have owned the soil this building sits on since the turn of the century. You look like you're here to case the joint. Are you hiding a sensor tag puller in that cheap fleece, or just a total lack of any self-respect? I'm going to ask you one more time to step aside and let me inspect the inventory," Elena said. Her voice wasn't a plea, it was a low, vibrating hum of controlled, tectonic power. "Or what?" Sterling hissed, stepping directly into her personal space, his breath smelling of expensive espresso and arrogance. "You'll call your manager? I'm the manager. I've spent 20 years curating this floor, weeding out the trash, to keep the garden pristine. I didn't spend 2 decades in the service of excellence so someone like you could lower the property value just by breathing the air. You're a predator looking for an easy mark, and I'm the one who's going to put you down." The escalation hit its breaking point. In a raw, unposed moment of physical aggression, Sterling reached out. He grabbed Elena's shoulder with a bruising, white-knuckled grip and delivered a sharp, violent shove that sent her staggering back toward the mahogany doors. "Get out, you thief!" he bellowed, his voice cracking with the strain of his own hate. "Someone call security. We have a trespasser in the lobby. I want her off my floor before she contaminates the silk." Elena hit the door, but she didn't fall. She stood her ground, her sneakers gripping the marble. She remained perfectly still, absorbing the assault with an icy, terrifying calm. She didn't reach for a phone. She didn't reach for a tablet. She simply looked at the gold clock on the wall as the second hand swept toward 4:10 p.m. 20 years, Sterling?" she whispered. The coldness in her voice seemed to dim the chandelier above them. "That's a long time to build a career just to watch it dissolve in the time it takes to blink." The heavy mahogany doors of Aurelian Co didn't just open. They were thrown wide by a phalanx of security in formal charcoal suits, their faces set in grim stone. Behind them marched a lead counsel whose silver-trimmed briefcase caught the sharp, icy light of the massive crystal chandelier. The social jury of elite shoppers instinctively parted like a receding tide, their judgmental smirks beginning to falter as they realized this wasn't the local precinct responding to a shoplifter. Sterling didn't let go of Elena's arm. If anything, he tightened his grip, his knuckles white against the black fabric of her hoodie. He turned toward the new arrivals with a frantic, sweating face, his voice cracking with a desperate need for validation. "Finally. Security. Arrest this woman. She's been trespassing and she just physically threatened me after I caught her casing the heritage displays. She's a danger to the clientele." The lead counsel didn't even glance at Sterling. He walked straight past the velvet-lined pillars and stopped exactly 2 paces from Elena. He bowed his head with a level of profound, silent respect usually reserved for a head of state or a monarch. "The wire transfer for $4.2 billion has cleared, ma'am," the counsel said, his voice cutting through the store's thick silence like a surgical blade. The board of directors has ratified the emergency buyout in a closed session. As of 60 seconds ago, the old money behind Aurelian Company has been liquidated. You are now the sole owner of this brand, this building, and every contract within these walls. The air seemed to vanish from the room. The social jury froze, their mouths hanging open in mid-judgment, their pearls suddenly feeling like lead weights around their necks. Sterling's hand began to shake so violently that it slid off Elena's shoulder as if he had been burned. His skin turned a ghostly, translucent white, his arrogance evaporating into a cold, pathetic sweat that soaked through his formal black vest. Elena slowly reached up and pulled back the heavy hood of her black sweatshirt. She wasn't wearing a mask. She was wearing the face of the woman who had just dismantled a century-old empire over her morning coffee. She stood beneath the massive crystal chandelier, her presence suddenly dwarfing the grand mahogany walls that Sterling had treated like a fortress. "You talked a lot about legacy today, Mr. Sterling," Elena said, her voice a low, lethal hum that seemed to vibrate the very marble beneath their feet. "But a legacy built on physical assault, on the humiliation of others, and on the delusion of superiority is just a debt waiting to be collected. You aren't protecting this brand. You are the rot that made it worth buying, so I could cut it out." She looked at the visible red handprint on the sleeve of her hoodie, then looked Sterling directly in the eyes with a gaze of chilling, surgical precision. "You spent 20 years guarding this door and you never realized that the person you should have been guarding it against was yourself. You didn't just fail the brand, you failed the basic humanity required to represent it. And in my company, humanity is the only currency that doesn't depreciate." She turned to her lead counsel, her eyes never leaving the trembling manager who was now backing away until he hit a mahogany display case. "Liquidate his contract immediately. No severance. No benefits. I want a full audit of his department's history of incidents with shoppers who didn't fit his aesthetic. And hand the high-definition security footage of him shoving me directly to the officers waiting at the entrance. I want him escorted out in the same classic style he tried to show me, in handcuffs through the front door." As the officers moved in, handcuffing Sterling in front of the very elite crowd he had spent his life trying to impress, Elena didn't look back at the wreckage of his career. She stood in the center of the marble floor, her figure in the black hoodie framed by the gold leaf ceiling. "To the rest of you," she said, her voice projecting to every corner of the silent boutique, addressing the stunned social jury, who were now desperately trying to look at the floor. "This store is officially closed for a total renovation. We're scrubbing the foundation until the stench of this morning is gone. We are firing the entire management staff by the end of the hour. Get out. Your money isn't good here anymore." The mahogany doors closed on the old era of Aurelian Company, leaving the woman in the hoodie standing alone under the brilliant, cold light of her new empire, having turned a physical assault into a corporate revolution in exactly 10 minutes. If you believe that character is the only true inheritance, like this video and share it. Tell us in the comments. Would you have let him keep the family company? Subscribe now for more stories of unstoppable dignity.